Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is our first part of circulatory system, and we're looking at, as always, to start off, structure and function. So let's change to a nice, oops, I don't even know what color it is, put it on. Black? Black we're in. Alright, so as you guys know from some history and probably just some previous knowledge, our heart has 4 chambers. It has 2 atria and 2 ventricles. And so our right atrium's here, left atrium's here. So I want you to picture this as it being inside your actual chest cavity. It's a mighty large body with an enormous heart. Oh look, it's stuff already colored there. That's outstanding. So imagine that this is inside your chest. So this is your right side and your left side. So even though when we're looking at it, it seems inverse there. So thin-walled upper atria, singular is atrium. And the lower ones are the ventricles, and these ones are thicker because this is what's doing all the pumping. So this is pumping out, and this is pumping out. Oops, sorry, that's pumping out. Moving along, the heart tissue. So it's made up of 3 different tissues. The pericardium, which if you look is on the outside of the heart. This is where it's kind of like a little sac in between, and this is where some lubricating liquid will be, just so when it's moving back and forth, the friction doesn't cause it to break down. The in-between layer, just like the myometrium, myo is going to be in muscle. So this is the cardiac muscle tissue. This is what's actually contracting to make your heart beat. And then the inner layer is called the endometrium. All this one is right here. It's mostly just endothelial tissue, which just means skin cells, and then some connective tissue as well. Oops. Alright, so as you guys can see in the middle here, you have this big piece of tissue here, which looks like it's separating this ventricle and this ventricle. It's called the septum. And the reason why this is there is because it prevents blood mixing. And the reason why that's significant is that this blood coming in here needs to go to the lungs, so it's deoxygenated. This stuff here is reoxygenated and it's putting off to the body. If all of this stuff was mixing, we wouldn't know which one is going out to the body and which one was going to the lungs. So we need to have all of our oxygenated blood in order for us to utilize the amount of energy that we're going to be producing. So it's to increase efficiency. Alright, so we have 4 valves, and the purpose of these valves is to prevent backflow. So once this blood comes through into the ventricle and it stops contracting, we don't want it to go back again. And same thing with this one. There's 4 altogether. We have 2 that are between the atria and the ventricles, and we call these atrioventricular valves. And it's supported by this stuff called chordae tendineae. And what it does is it prevents these valves from flipping right out. So this is it right here. It's this connective tissue that's going to hold those valves and prevent them from inverting. We also have a couple names for our for those valves, and we call them the tricuspid. So here's our tricuspid. The reason why is because it has 3 flaps, and we have our bicuspid, which has 2. It's also called the mitral valve, but we'll just focus on these terms. Okay, flip it. And then we also have ones that are going to be in between the ventricles and the leaving vessels. So these ones resemble half moons, and so these ones right here and here. And so that's why we call them semilunar valves. So it's nice and easy to remember what these ones are called because it's based on where they're going. Blood that's going out the aorta, which is this, is called the aortic semilunar valve, and that's taking blood to the rest of the body. Well, the one that's going to the lungs is called the pulmonary semilunar valve because it's going out the pulmonary artery. Okay. So you may have to just stop that for a second to check it out. All right, so let's look at the blood flow. There's vena cava, so there is a inferior, which means below, and a superior, which means above or greater than. And this is coming from the head, and this is coming from the body, and this is both with out oxygen, so O2 pour. So what happens is it enters through the right atrium here, and then it gets pumped through to the right ventricle before it leaves through the pulmonary artery with the goal of going to the lungs to get reoxygenated. So these pulmonary veins, so here's our lungs. It looks exactly like that apparently. What's going to happen is it's going to come back in through these pulmonary veins, and now it's oxygenated. And what's going to happen is it's going to enter through the left atrium, gets, right here, pumped down into the right ventricle, or left ventricle, sorry, and then pumped out the body and to the head. And now we have this oxygenated blood that can provide all the oxygen for our cellular respiration. So make sure that you know that this guy here, this major blood vessel, is called the aorta. Make sure you know that these ones are called the vena cava. This one here is called the pulmonary artery, and then coming back is the pulmonary vein. And just a little cartoon to finish off with, and finally our summary. So this is what you need to make sure that you know. If you don't, make sure that you know it before you move on. So name the 4 chambers and the characteristics of each. So are they thin, are they thick, are they the ones that are the big ones that are contracting the muscles? What are the 3 tissue layers? What is the function of the septum? Name the functions of the 4 valves, and the name, the pathway of the blood. And then what you can do is, once you think you have a pretty good understanding of it, check your understanding by taking this quiz. So I set up an Emoto account, and it's all you have to do is go click on this website. Obviously you can't off of here, so type it in your browser. Put in there that you're a student, and then click in this guy here. This is a 0, not an O, so EM0LUC, and it'll pop up. You'll have to make an account. It takes 3 minutes. And then you can go on, and there's about 10 or 11 questions that will check your understanding of these concepts. So make sure when you come to class you have that quiz done, and write any questions that you may have. Have yourselves an outstanding night. Ready? Stop. That was painful.